Okay.
So we will do that quickly before I introduce our guest presenter today. After this session, if you will go back to your different co-op groups, because we've got some information about some ways that we're going to try to continue this work moving forward. So we'll have that information in our different groups. But for our session now, continuing our reading strand in room 6, we have Amelia Powers, who has 23 years. He has a 23-year career in education, has a passion and skill for teaching children how to read and write, which is so critical. She recently joined the Kentucky Department of Education, the Office of Teaching and Learning, as a state regional literacy director. Prior to that, she served as a literacy consultant for Northern Kentucky Co-op. And so we're really excited to have her here. Her experience is working with K-5 and as a reading specialist at the primary level. So Amelia, I'll let you take over.
All right. Thank you so much, Chrissy. And thank you to all of you for joining this session on just gaining better understanding of that crucial role of knowledge building resources in our elementary classrooms. So if you've been in room 6 at all today, then you already have this date on your calendar, June 20th. You can, if you've been in room 6, then you know we really want you to come. Save that date. Emily Hanford will be our keynote speaker, and we will announce more details publicly, hopefully very, very soon. But we're really excited about this, and we are really excited for you to come and bring along your teachers. So before, let's see. Let's go here, actually. Okay, so I had some district level leaders from a local school district here in Northern Kentucky. I serve the Northern Kentucky region. They reached out to me with some specific questions about high quality instructional resources, about the recommendations from the department, and the reasons behind the knowledge building recommendation. So in my mind, I kind of thought if these district leaders have these questions, then you might also. So here are their questions. I'm just going to give you a moment to look over those questions just to make sure that this session is right for you. All right, so let's go ahead and dive into that first one. That first question is, why is a knowledge building resource a priority in a comprehensive reading program? So if you were not in the last session, I'll just give a little bit of context. Per Amendments KRS 158-305, as part of Senate Bill 156, a common comprehensive reading program that's determined to be reliable, valid, and aligned to the reading and writing standards must be adopted for grades K-3 in your district by July 1st. So yes, the Kentucky Department of Education is recommending that that resource that you choose is both explicit and systematic in teaching a structured literacy base, but also that it is knowledge building. And here's why. There's a lot of research pointing to the fact that the way that we have been teaching reading, and specifically the way we've been teaching reading comprehension in elementary school, has been primarily focused on skills and strategies. So, for example, our lessons, and when I say our lessons, I am including myself, because this is how we were taught to teach. So our lessons were focused on things like finding the main idea, looking for supporting details, making predictions, making inferences. And then we chose text to teach those skills with. So typically we had a collection of texts, likely they were disconnected from the previous text, solely being used to, for example, practice finding the main idea. But Evidence now indicates that what really fuels reading comprehension, and especially the kind of reading comprehension that is expected at higher levels and required of our students when they read more complex text, is having relevant knowledge. Now, that could be knowledge of the topic, it could be general academic knowledge, vocabulary, it could even be familiarity with complex syntax. And the way you really get this is just by learning about and being exposed to a whole lot of things, right? Just having access to different complex texts and just learning about a lot of stuff, even if it is through just listening or discussion or read alouds. Now, I am going to guess that many people in this virtual space have heard of the baseball study. So I'm not going to dive in too super deep, but for anyone, I don't want to leave anybody out if anyone has not heard of it. It was a study done back in the late 80s. A couple of researchers wanted to find out what's more important to reading comprehension. Is it general skill, like finding the main idea, those kind of things that are tested on our standardized tests? Or is it how much the reader knows about the topic that they're reading about? So they chose baseball because they were doing this with 7th and 8th graders, and they divided the kids up into 4 groups, depending on how much they knew about baseball and how well they scored on a standardized comprehension test. They gave them all a little passage to read about baseball and then tested their comprehension. And what they found was that what really made a difference was how much the student knew about baseball. The kids who were poor and poorest readers, they, according to that standardized test they took, but were also baseball experts, they did as well as the good readers who were also baseball experts, and significantly better than the good readers who did not know much about baseball. Now, that's one study. It's a very popular one that gets quoted quite a bit, but there is research that actually goes back to the 30s that informs this idea that readers use their knowledge to understand text. Findings supporting the importance of background knowledge have been replicated, but in the research world, you're not going to find a lot of deep studies on this anymore because it's just known. The effect is known now. The effect of background knowledge on comprehension amongst researchers is well known. So it's not interesting to them anymore. It should be interesting to us as educators and to us as policymakers and informers, because our practices in the classroom are not reflecting this just yet. We are still seeing, and no fault of theirs again, but we are still seeing skills being drilled and taught, and texts being pulled in order to practice finding supporting details and things like that. Now, I am not an absolutist, and I hope you aren't either. What we don't want to see happen is that pendulum flip to go so far to the other side that we convince ourselves that only background knowledge is sufficient. Of course, students do need to attend closely to words and text. They do need to be made aware of skills and strategies that effective readers and writers use. Basic skills and background knowledge can't be disentangled from one another. They should be both the focus of instruction. They are intrinsically intertwined, is what I have there. It's just clear that those skills in isolation, and there's even studies that show that just that repeated practice, kids don't need that much practice with it, doesn't really move the needle in regard to comprehension. It's about grouping comprehension strategies, modeling them, reminding students of them with knowledge building connected text. Okay, I'm on a soapbox here. All right, the next question that was posed to me is, why is this important for our K to 2 students? And the reason I think this was posed is because we do think about our primary grades as needing those foundational level skills. We need to focus with them on just decoding and encoding and those kind of things. So to answer this question, let's just remind ourselves of the simple view of reading. If you're not familiar, this is a mathematical formula that just helps us understand the basic components of what is required to help students, no, to help anyone learn how to read with comprehension. So word recognition times language comprehension equals reading comprehension. Word comprehension, that is our ability to read words. So that includes those foundational skills. And then language comprehension, that is our oral vocabulary, our understanding of word meaning. That's what includes that knowledge component. The simple view of reading suggests that reading comprehension is improved by strengthening both of these. Both of these have to be in place in order to grow successful readers. They have to all be happening together at all grade levels. Now, yes, the balance shifts a little bit regarding what percentage of time is spent in the classroom in different areas, but we do not want to wait until 3rd grade to begin building that right side of the equation. We could point to the Matthew effect as a reason why it could be detrimental to wait to build that side of the equation. The Matthew effect, I know you guys know this, but it refers to that pattern where those who begin with an advantage gain more advantage over time. And those who begin with a disadvantage become more disadvantaged over time. So you've probably heard that summarized as the rich get richer and the poor get poorer. Beginning in late 2nd or 3rd grade is when we really shift to more heavy instruction less heavy instruction on foundational skills and more equal parts meaning making. So our 3rd graders are being asked to make meaning of complex texts who have not had opportunities to learn about the world, whether it's live learning or it's through books and read alouds and lessons. They will be at a disadvantage. One of my favorite scientists, Daniel Willingham, he's a cognitive psychologist. He puts it this way. Let me find that quote. Knowledge does much more than help students hone their thinking skills. It actually makes learning easier. Knowledge is not only cumulative, it grows exponentially. Those with a rich base of factual knowledge find it easier to learn more. The rich get richer. I also appreciate the statement from the Knowledge Matters campaign. I'm going to share that with you. It says, knowledge is like an interest-bearing savings account. The more you know, the faster you learn. Therefore, growing knowledge about the natural and human world in the early grades is an essential equity investment, and it sets the stage for a lifetime of critical inquiry and analysis. If you are not familiar with the Knowledge Matters campaign, I'm going to share that with you now. This will help you dive a little bit deeper into the why behind a knowledge building program. They have cited a lot of research on this website. I appreciate that about it. They also have I think 6-episode podcast that is phenomenal. Very short episodes, like 30 minutes an episode, so it's easy. I highly recommend you plug that into your earbuds to just help you gain more clarity about the why. And then I also highly recommend you sharing that with your teachers as you go through the adoption process to help them understand that why. There's one other thing coming to my mind when it comes to this question about why it's important for K2. And what you're going to find as you are going through the adoption process of a high quality instructional resource that is knowledge building is that many of them have a big percentage of teachers reading aloud. And that may be a shift for a lot of your teachers. I am sure that your primary teachers read books aloud. I'm positive of it. But oftentimes they're doing it for pleasure or for that purpose of, now can anyone make a prediction, right? Like it's for that skill and strategy. A lot of our knowledge building resources that are green rated have teachers reading aloud for much different purposes to build that knowledge and connect that understanding. And again, that if that is going to be very different for your teachers and you think you might have to do some convincing of, why am I reading a lot about birds for 6 weeks? Like that could need some convincing, right? Amplify also has a podcast. And it is, I'm not plugging Amplify in any way, but the podcast is high quality. Their most recent series is all about knowledge building. And episode 2, I'm going to try to find that one for you, is all about the benefits of reading aloud. And there we go. Thank you, Allison. So Molly Ness, she's an author and educator. She does a really good job in that episode of just explaining the benefits of reading aloud, not only for knowledge building, for a lot of reasons. So I'm going to plug that also in relation to this question. Okay. I'm going to stop really quick. Does anybody have any questions about what we have talked about so far? I'm not afraid of questions. I might not know the answer, but. Or any questions in the chat, Tara or Allison, that I have, or Marcia, that I've missed. Okay. All right. So another question that has come my way is this one. Why are some high quality instructional resources that have green ratings not on that short list of KDE's recommended resources? So someone that was in the last session, I don't know if she's here now, but she kind of asked that, like, is there a list of these HQIRs? For Senate Bill 156, schools must select a green rated resource. So essentially, like Allison said earlier, if you were in the session earlier, that is our approved list in essence. Anything that's green rated would meet the requirement. But the Kentucky Department of Education has thrown out a few recommended resources by name. And those are CKLA, EL Education, and Wit and Wisdom. These resources have been named specifically simply because they are both green rated and knowledge building. So that's the reason they've been specifically named, in addition to the fact that they are also common ones that other Kentucky schools have selected. So more of us in the division and the Office of Teaching and Learning have had an opportunity to see these in action and get to know them a little better than others. Doesn't mean that that's the list you need to pick from, because even though they've been named, we know that no resource is perfect. It's your local needs and your priorities that need to be considered in that final decision, which is why that process in the consumer guide is so critical for you and your team to really be able to identify what does our school need. Thank you, Allison, for answering questions. Okay, so another great question. And I think this is the last question. So I'm doing good. Looking at my time. Why are the knowledge building resources? Nope, not why. How are the knowledge building resources aligned with the science on how the brain learns to read? Okay, so I actually really, really appreciate this question because not all of them are. And that's important to know. When narrowing down your selections from, I'm looking for green rated, now I'm considering knowledge building, you do want to look at their alignment with a structured literacy approach. So the science of how the brain learns to read includes all 5 components of literacy. So phonemic awareness, phonics, vocabulary, fluency, and comprehension. So you do want to look at with your team that you've established, how do the resources that I'm considering, how are they rated in these areas? So what I would like to do, since I have some time, and I can share these links with you also. Let me get out of here. Okay, let's go to, hopefully this looks familiar. We're on Ed Reports. I'll put that in here too if you want to also go there. So we're looking at Core Knowledge Language Arts, CKLA, on Ed Reports. We can visually see that it's green rated in all 3 gateways. So, right, thumbs up there, check mark there. We can see its score for knowledge building. CKLA is a knowledge building resource. Over on the left, they've got a little button titled Science of Reading. So if we click on that, we're going to see all 5 components of a structured literacy approach and how it's rated for each grade level in that component. So this is just a little snapshot as your starting place for making sure it's aligned with a structured literacy approach. To dive deeper, you would need to then go to the full report, but this gives you and your team an idea of, okay, this is something I want to continue to investigate, or, ooh, look at these ratings or look at these non-ratings. Maybe this is one we need to set aside and focus more on this one, right? Let's go to just another example. And there it is if you want to check it out yourself. Did I just send you EL, I believe? All right, so here's EL education. Again, visually, it's green in all 3 gateways. It is knowledge building. And when I click on Science of Reading, the 5 components of structured literacy are rated. There's my snapshot to know, do I want to dive deeper or not? I do want to look at one more because it looks a little bit different. All right, so here is Wit and Wisdom. This is another one that has been specifically named because it is green rated and it is knowledge building. When I click on Science of Reading for Wit and Wisdom, it looks a little bit different than the others. The reason why is because it does not include those early foundational skills. It does not have a foundational component. So this is your initial snapshot with your team. If you don't have anything that could supplement that already in your school, maybe this informs your team that, ooh, we want to look at this one instead. That's more comprehensive. Maybe your team loves Wit and Wisdom so much for that vocabulary comprehension and knowledge building pieces. So this would inform your team that we need to supplement with another purchase or something else that we have existing that could explicitly and systematically teach phonemic awareness, phonics, and fluency, since this resource is not going to provide that. And you can do that. You do have that as an option. This meets the criteria of being green rated and the recommended knowledge building. Your team would just need to then plan for a supplemental resource to support these missing pieces of Wit and Wisdom. And let's go back here. Okay, any questions now? We're at another kind of stopping point here. And I'm gonna look at the chat. Yes, thank you for sharing that, Marcia. Okay. All right, so I want to thank you for staying until 2:30 for this session. That the pressure's on at the very end of the day. I also want to make sure to point out my email address there, and I'll put that here. From previous sessions, you also know Tara and Marcia and Allison, and not here, but also Whitney Hamilton can all answer questions for you. And if we do not know the answer, we will find it for you and connect you to the right people. Thank you for putting your addresses in there. And yeah, we do have 4 minutes on my clock. If there are questions, we can certainly open that up in the chat, or you can just unmute.
One question that has come up a lot of times when I'm talking to districts, and Kristen even kind of spoke to it as well. They're finding that it passes knowledge building on ed reports, but then when they go to the Knowledge Matters campaign, it is not one that Knowledge Matters endorses as being knowledge building. And so I just encourage those districts to print out the rubric that knowledge building utilizes it and cross-reference that, just so they're aware. Because if I'm honest, everybody in this room, and I'm not talking about one specific curriculum, I'm just saying every one of them knows now to say they are knowledge building. But it's up to us to really take it through a rubric and say, is it truly knowledge building and what the definition is? Or are they just slapping it, just like lots of companies do that on their cover and their presentation? So I definitely would take it through that rubric as well. And I don't know, Amelia, if you have any more advice around that.
Well, I think that's great advice. We saw the same thing happen with the term science of reading, where all of a sudden that was slapped on every resource. And we saw the same thing happen with Common Core or standards, that everything was aligned. And I would also say that also lends me to want to plug letters even more, because when we have the knowledge of what a structured literacy program could look like and all the pieces that are required for how our brains learn to read, then we're better able to make those selections. But yeah, there's a rubric there, and there's rubrics in the consumer guide too that you can utilize to cross-reference. Marcia.
And I would suggest that you maybe look, if you're looking at a curriculum and you truly want to see if it is knowledge building, to see if they have that document included where it actually shows the progression of knowledge to grade levels. Because if it doesn't have that progression, it's not truly knowledge building. It's more similar to the thematic units that you are used to seeing in basal readers, where it may spend 6 weeks on a theme, but not really dive deep into a specific topic.
That is an excellent point. Thank you for adding that. Yeah, the
Marcia-
real knowledge building resources, they build on each other from what the students learned in first grade and on to second grade and on to third grade. Yeah, that's an excellent point.
Marcia, can you reiterate what you just said again? Because I think that is like perfect, how some of the districts that I've tried to help are struggling with that. And I want to be able to like use your verbiage, because I think that's a great succinct way to say it.
Okay, you really put me on the spot because I'm from Eastern Kentucky. So,
And me too,
okay.
you're good.
If you're looking at curriculums and you're trying to determine whether it is truly knowledge building, that curriculum should include a document that shows the progression of knowledge throughout the grade levels and how that knowledge builds. For example, CKLA will show how that it builds on the human body starting in kindergarten, and it shows the progression to what they learn about in first grade and then second grade and third grade and so on. The other ones that may say that they're knowledge building may spend 6 weeks on a theme, as opposed to students actually learning more in-depth information about a topic that is built upon year after year.
Okay, thank you so much. That's perfect.
It was perfect.
And
yeah.
that will be not a stumbling block, but something that you're going to have to overcome with teachers is staying on a topic
Yeah.
for a long period of time. That is tough for teachers. And so just thinking through, how am I going to support that with the adoption of a knowledge building curriculum? Because that will be a shift for many teachers, and we can't ignore the emotions that will be around that.
And that's where I would also plug again that Knowledge Matters campaign podcast. There are a lot of testimonies in that podcast from actual teachers that made that shift. So kind of being able to hear from them firsthand. I used to think this and now I think this, I think is really powerful to share with teachers. And now it is 2:30. So do we need to stop talking, Chrissy?
Well, that's up to you. We don't have our next session until 2:40. So if anyone else has questions or comments, feel free.
Okay. We'll give the appropriate amount of wait time to see if anyone else has any questions.
I have a question that has been asked of me from teachers or administrators in other districts that I've worked with, and it may be beneficial for the group, and you guys may be able to help me put into words a good response, since Marcia just was able to do that. So I think one thing I've kind of cautioned them about in thinking about the knowledge building curriculum is that it's going to look different from what they've done in the past. Like Allison was just saying, I think that is going to take a mindset shift, or they have to understand that. And that's where that podcast could be so helpful. Do you guys have recommendations on for district or school leaders on how they can support teachers in coming around to that idea? Are there any I mean, I know I've sent a couple things out, to try to help, but I would love to see what you guys are sharing, because I think it's hard for them to wrap their head around the big change, and they're not going to look at it and like what maybe what some of these curriculums look like compared to what they're used to. Or do you guys have any guidance or advice or wisdom to share that could be helpful for me or others in the group?
Yeah, I'll start, but Marcia and Tara and Allison, please piggyback off of what I'm gonna say. But it looks like, actually, I think Marcia, you just said where my head went. So one of the benefits that we have all that's kind of bubbled to the surface for all of us as we learn this alongside of you is that having a high quality instructional resource, knowledge building or not, is going to save teachers time. So all of that time we talked about, if you were in Allison's session last time, we talked about all the time teachers use searching on Google and searching on Teachers Pay Teachers and searching on Pinterest for what am I going to do today to teach this skill or to align with this whatever. That's taken away with the high quality instructional resource. And now all they have to do is prep. They don't need to plan. The planning is done for them, and they just need to do the prep. And that requires some support. Your teachers will need support to prep a lesson and internalize it and be able to facilitate that with their students. But that's the first place my head goes, is kind of plugging that time saving for teachers, taking that brain work away.
And also money, because
Mhm.
if those teachers are purchasing things off of Teacher Pay Teachers, that's time and that's money that's coming out of their pocket that could be used for their own family. And whenever you're using an HQIR,
Mm.
it's not going to take away the art of teaching. It's just taking away the time spent on trying to find resources from all these different places that may not meet the rigor of the standards of the grade level they're teaching. So they're spending time and money, just like Allison said, they're spending time and money on resources that may not even be grade level appropriate.
And there could certainly be different levels of implementation of your HQIR. Now, I don't have all the answers as far as what that could look like, but year 1 of implementation might look different than year 2 of implementation. In year 1, maybe we are gathering information on this aspect of it from the teachers as they implement the lessons. You know, we're gathering questions and concerns and comments, and we're addressing them for year 2 to make another shift in implementation and including them along the way. Allison?
I put some of it in there, but I also am going to speak to the leaders in the room that are looking at the different HQIRs. I would encourage you to have time for teachers to actually look at a lesson, read through a lesson from each of your top 3 options, top 2 options, so they can experience what that would look like as far as we're moving from planning to prepping. That really helped in my home district, just so they could see how it's laid out and that it's not taking, Michelle's here, yeah, she could probably speak to that, but it's not taking away from them. They now have a freedom to say, how are they going to engage with this question that's already written to the rigor?
Yeah.
If that makes sense. But one con is when they see it, they think, oh, now I'm a science teacher. That's a negative connotation that comes out at the table is, this is all science content. I thought I was teaching reading. So we had to address that elephant in the room. But look at the standards. When you're asking those questions, they are reading standards, ELA standards. So.
Well, ladies, thank you very, very much. Great information. And as you can tell, I know in working with the people in the OVEC region, we've had a lot of discussion. We've been fortunate that Tara has been part of our supervisor group, and she's kind of kept us up to date. But I do, there's a big need, and good luck to you as you embrace this across the state.
Thank you, Chrissy, and thank you to all of you guys. Stay warm.
Yes, yes.